I wanted to make a recipe that I've made recently that I really enjoy. This time I'm adding a little different things to it, but what I'm gonna make tonight is I'm gonna make chicken meatballs with an Alfredo sauce. Now, the last time I made it, I used all fresh ground chicken thighs. Today I am going to be using chicken breasts that I got because they were on sale. They were a good price, and some ground beef. So it's going to give it a little bit of a different flavor, but I think it's really going to work together. The last time I made them, it was all chicken and it was really good. Right as I was about to make this video, I realized I don't have any more eggs, which is always a nice little thing. So I'm just going to use this chicken broth instead. This homemade broth, I made this a day or two ago. The other things that we're going to use, if you look in here, we have oregano and salt and anise seed. Anise seed is my special, it's my special ingredient seasoning, and it gives it a good Italian flavor. Now this is 2 tablespoons of oregano, 1 tablespoon of salt, and about 1/4 teaspoon of the anise seed. I also have some sage here. This is some fresh sage from my mom's garden, and we're gonna just rub and crumble that in as well. This morning I made some mug cake with some macadamia flour. I've got a little bit in here. And then the last thing we're gonna use is this mozzarella, because you know, you gotta have cheese and meatballs. It's really good. All right, so I cut the chicken breasts up into chunks, and I just processed it in the food processor to get it in a ground state. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to put all of our seasonings in, and the macadamia nut flour. And when it comes to the sage, we're just going to rub it. This is what rubbed sage actually is. You're just rubbing it to get it all crumbled up. And then into that, I'm going to put the cheese. I'm not going to put all of it quite yet because I don't know how much I'm going to need. And now comes the fun part where you just, I'm a very rustic cook, so I like using my hands to mix things like meatballs and meatloaf and anything like that. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do this, and it's gonna be a mess, but that's okay. Now the reason you use an egg is for binding, but also it kind of helps to loosen it a little, and this is a little thick, so because I don't have the egg, that's okay. Like I said, I'm going to be using the bone broth instead. And while you're squishing it together, you want to make sure that the chicken and the beef get well combined, that there's no chunks of cheese in any place, and that all the spices get well incorporated. And you just keep squeezing and moving and squeezing and moving. And let me go ahead at this point and throw in some of that bone broth. So I'm going to put in maybe a couple tablespoons full, and I'm going to put the rest of the cheese in because I like cheese. Cheese is a good thing. And as you can see, it's getting a little looser for us now because I put that bone broth in, and that's just going to add a little bit of fat, a little bit of flavor, a little bit of moisture. Lined pan, and I'm just going to make some meatballs, and you can make these any size you want. It's really simple. You don't have to make them pretty. You can make them mushy looking. You can just make them into patties. You can make them into balls. I'm not really good at measuring, so I just play it by ear. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish putting these meatballs on here and get them into a 375-degree oven. Once I have them going in the oven, then I'm going to start the Alfredo sauce. Now my Alfredo sauce is a little different than everybody else's because I absolutely use 0% heavy whipping cream, and I use 0% of cream cheese, meaning I don't use it at all. I don't make my Alfredo sauce with that stuff because I actually react to it. So my Alfredo sauce is just a little bit different, and it's really super easy and unique. You want to try to make all the balls the same size, because if you don't, then when they cook, they won't cook evenly. Some will get done quick. Here we are, and we're going to make Alfredo sauce. Like I said, I make it a little different than everybody else because of my allergies. So I want to show you what we're using. We're using a full stick of butter because I want a lot of this sauce for leftovers. We're going to use sour cream, maybe a little more of that bone broth. This is a triangle of Parmesan cheese, and all I did was I cut it into cubes and put it in my blender, and it came out nice and ground up. So we're going to use that, and of course a little bit of salt. So this is an interesting recipe. It's you know, not how people normally make Alfredo sauce. A lot of things I have to leave out because of my allergies. People will put garlic in their Alfredo sauce. I don't do that because I am allergic to garlic and onions. I'm kind of allergic to the world, but you know what? I've learned how to cook really good food without things. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to melt this butter in the pan. All right, now this took about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to melt all of that. And as you can tell, it's starting to bubble. So I'm going to take it and turn the burner off and move it over off the heat for a minute for the next step. Now, the reason I do that is because I'm using just sour cream, and we don't want the sour cream to curdle or separate. So that's why we do it off the heat. And I'm just going to eyeball. I always just eyeball. I know it's really terrible. This is a 1/8 cup measuring cup. I'm probably using, that's probably about a half a cup right there. And I'm probably going to put another good cup in there in just a minute. And I know it looks like it's a lot of sour cream, and it really is a lot of sour cream, but that's going to be your base. And this is going to make a very, very big recipe. Now, the best thing I have found is to use a whisk, and we're just going to whisk it carefully because you don't want the butter to go everywhere. You don't want to splash it out, and you want to get it incorporated. So this does take a little bit of patience, but once it gets moving, you'll see it doesn't take too long to do. So now that that's really well incorporated, I'm going to go ahead and put it back on the hot burner. I'm not really turning that burner on right now. I just want it to slowly warm up the sour cream a little bit, because as it warms up, it will thin out a little bit. And as you can see, this is really still pretty thick. And while we're waiting for that, I'm also going to take the Parmesan cheese, and I'm going to use probably about a half cup of Parmesan cheese. We're going to start out with half a cup and see what it looks like and see how it tastes. And also at this point, I'm going to add a little bit of salt, and I'm just going to do about half. So this is a really versatile base. You can add any of the spices that you want. I've been known to add some rosemary and some oregano to give it, you know, a different flavor. But, you know, you can just go crazy with this recipe because there's a lot of things that you will be able to do. Now, as you can see, it's all nice and well incorporated, but I still see some lumps, and that means the Parmesan cheese needs to melt a little bit. So I've melted the butter on high. I'm going to turn the burner on to about 3 and just let it finish melting. Now, of course, cheddar is going to melt a little bit better, and Parmesan may take a little bit to melt. And I'm just going to test it real quick for flavor. It's really good, but I do think it needs a little more salt, so I'm going to add just a little bit more. It's got a bit of a sweet flavor to it right now, so that's why I'm adding the salt. Now, you could add cayenne pepper to this. You could add black or white pepper to this, but again, I don't because, yeah, I'm allergic. So it's just a basic recipe for me. Now, we have the meatballs in the oven. The sauce is pretty much done, so I'm going to let it just finish doing what it's going to do. And now I have to go and make dinner for my other daughter because she is dairy allergic and can't have any of this. So she gets crack slaw tonight. But here's a look at how the meatballs are looking so far. And we'll come back when they're all done. All right, we have taken these out of the oven. They cooked for about 30-45 minutes. Honestly, I'm not a good timer kind of person. I just kind of cook until they look good. These over here got a little more brown because they were on the top rack, but you know, those look pretty darn awesome too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a few of these and I'm gonna go ahead and maybe put them nicely in my bowl, maybe. And then I'm going to come over here and get a little bit of this yummy sauce and just dump it over the top of it. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. And just so you know, I did end up adding another ½ cup of Parmesan cheese to this. It just was missing that cheesy flavor, so I did go ahead and do that. I added a little more Parmesan cheese to the sauce. I have over here a small side salad that I'm going to eat with this with some homemade Italian dressing. And so yeah, that's my dinner for tonight. Hope you guys like it. If you like my recipe,